last night, I only read about it today, but one of the things that the president was talking about was that how great the economic recovery has been since 2008, and apparently everything was booming until 2008, and they were talking about that shit in the 90s too. Bill Clinton used to always say, we're having a boom or something. You know, it's just like, I tell that to the 4 million homeless people. I just don't, you know, understand the concept. But yeah, we got now lately, you know, but sometimes, you know, they have to stick with statistics. Like, they can't just make stuff up completely. So, like, I mean, without, you know, losing credibility. So, like, at least journalists, like, so they'll mention, they used to be saying, income inequality is at its highest level in the United States since 1929. And then a few weeks ago, they didn't announce that things were changing, but they just kind of like mentioned that when they would do that statistic, they'd say income inequality in the United States is now greater than it's been since the 19th century. That was long before you know, we got like any kind of a welfare system. So I guess it kind of tells you something. Yeah, one of the side effects of the financial crisis has been me making more trips to Iceland because it's the cheapest way to get across the Atlantic. And I think the way that they dealt with the financial crisis in Iceland was very notable and worthy of emulation. We could even have a competition, I'd say, actually, rather than emulating. You know, we can see who could jail the most bankers. You know, whichever country can do that would win a prize. Iceland is an island. Iceland is an island with 500,000 or so Vikings, mostly known for volcanoes, hot springs, and fishing. Known for its welfare state for being good and socialistic. Certainly not known for being corrupt or nepotistic. But in the USA and Europe, when they were deregulating banks, Iceland's politicians took bribes and joined their ranks. And you had a situation one would think just couldn't be. A bank whose debt was worth 10 times the country's GDP. When Wall Street imploded, sure enough it spread. Banks all over the world were floating in the red. All over the world, governments made the plan to cut spending and raise taxes on the working woman and working man. The banks were bailed out while the people had to pay. But in Iceland, people thought there must be a better way. And the earth stood still a moment. Fear was struck in every top. When Iceland told the bankers, Iceland told the bankers, Iceland told the bankers to fuck off. Folks were in the streets in Reykjavik and just couldn't be ignored. They said this is a debt the Icelanders can't afford. Let's guarantee deposits of all our people, yes indeed. But as for all the speculators motivated by their greed to make really dumb investments, to them Iceland said good luck. Sorry for your losses, but we don't really give a fuck. The 1% all trembled when they took away the trough. When Iceland told the bankers, Iceland told the bankers, Iceland told the bankers to fuck off. The UK called them terrorists, said we cannot let this stand. Who do these peacenik blondes think they are in Iceland? They threatened isolation and economy in flames. But the Icelanders said sorry, but the banks can settle their own claims. So that might be harder for them now that they're under house arrest. Or else they fled the country as they were most unwelcome guests. And now Reykjavik's recovery just makes the fat cats cough. Since Iceland told the bankers, Iceland told the bankers, Iceland told the bankers to fuck off. If you haven't heard of this example, perhaps there's a reason why. The owners of the world don't want this kind of shit to fly. They say we all must pay up in this shakedown by the mob. If we can't afford to pay the rent cause we don't have a job, they say it's not their problem. If we're forever shackled by their debt, we must save the 1% from the fate they should have met. But there is an alternative, though it makes the fat cats scoff. That Iceland told the bankers, Iceland told the bankers, Iceland told the bankers to fuck off. That Iceland told the bankers, Iceland told the bankers, Iceland told the bankers to fuck off. Try this. Millions of people from the colonies were living in the faraway cities, home of those who killed their country, who tried for over a century to bring Jesus back to Africa, from Mali to Algeria, and they fired into the protesters, dumped them in the rivers. There were lots of folks getting along, lots of folks feeling they'd been wronged in the crowded Paris streets, in the patrol cars' back seats, in the land of the catechism, in the land of secularism, where the learned taught the learning, where the cars were sometimes burning before the war came home. Before the war came home. There was rising real estate, fear of the caliphate, no question what it meant when Le Pen got 25%. Fighter jets in flight, lighting up the night. More enemies were made when the armies of the West invaded. There were lots of talking heads, quoting something someone said. There were blasphemous cartoons, pouring salt upon the wounds. More countries to attack, now Syria, now Iraq. Fighters returning who had seen the cities burning before the war came home. Before the war came home. There were people in the cafes, having meetings, drinking oldies. There were tourists in the tower, there were girls picking flowers. There were Muslims praying, there were others saying, this is a secular nation, no room for religious demonstration. There were people talking about blowback, there were occasional attacks. There were many people asking what kind of beer was brewing. There were ringing church bells and Al-Qaeda sleeper cells. Passers-by without a clue what those masked men were about to do before the war came home. Before the war